Hello everybody, welcome to the Political Vigilante. Elwood. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Just added some for the Progressive Comedy Tour. We've added Pensacola, Florida, and Fort Worth, Texas. That is in March and April, I believe. Pensacola, we're not going to be doing in the January Florida run. We're going to add that when we go to New Orleans and that region in March. So go to grahamelwood.com for those. For those dates, everybody. You're watching the Political Vigilante. Look at it. We're making Gotham great again. So we've been talking a lot on this show about ways to resist or make a change or, you know, take it to the powerful. And I say whatever nonviolent means necessary. I'm not for violent protest or anything like that. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I always say it's death by 1,000 cuts, where here's a new one. Activist group sues to force open primaries. This came out in Politico.com by David Siders. This came out November 14th. This is very interesting. So it's the company Open Primaries. Full disclosure, I have been paid by them to shoot commercials, so I'm a big proponent of Open Primaries. I'm not paid by I'm not an employee of them. I am not on their payroll, but I have been paid in the past to shoot commercials for them. Full disclosure. But I accepted the job shooting commercials for them because I believe in what they're doing. I don't think Open Primaries, and neither do they, think it's the silver bullet. It's the one fix that'll cure all of our election ills. But I think it's a good cause, and I think they're really trying to open up the system. And one of the things they've done is they've sued the state of New Mexico because they're blocking open primaries from happening. And this is the tactic they went out and raised money for this specific thing, and they're going to get a lot of news, and it's a smart thing. We'll get into the details right now. The New York-based Open Primaries Education Fund, representing 4 voters in New Mexico, said it filed a lawsuit Tuesday arguing closed primaries, primary elections that limit participation to registered party members, constitute an illegal gift of public funds. Such primaries, they claim, benefit political parties while disenfranchising independent voters. Because here's what goes on. The two-party system says, oh, we're private organizations and we can run our primaries however we want. But that's not true because they take public money. So they have their elections in schools and libraries. Those are public buildings. So they can't just say, oh, it's a private organ. The way the parties used to primaries, they used to just go behind closed doors and sit there and figure it out and then say, this is our guy. This is who's running. And now they have these elections, which are kind of bullshit anyway, as we saw in the 2016 primary. And, you know, there's a lot of states that won't let independents vote. That was a big thing. They made a big point of blocking independents in the last presidential primary because they knew most of the independents were going to vote for Bernie. They didn't want that to happen. So Open Primaries is taking a lawsuit, and a big part of this lawsuit is to just get public awareness, and they're doing a good job, I think. Politicians, not surprisingly, are reluctant to change a system that they're comfortable with, said John Updike, president of Open Primaries. By raising the basic premise that publicly funded elections should be open to everybody, I think can really help both in the courts, but also in legislatures to create more momentum. The lawsuit, filed in New Mexico's Supreme Court, names as a defendant the New Mexico Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse Oliver, who has publicly supported the move to open primaries. So I've talked about this before, but open primaries just gave us Kenneth Mejia and Rodolfo in the congressional 34th and 40th district. They were 2 Green Party candidates that made it to the general. And they lost going up against Democrats. And while Kenneth Mejia got 26% of the vote, I think it was significant because, and some people say, well, we couldn't do write-in candidates because of the open primary, the top 2 system. Kenneth Mejia if we would have done it the old way, would have been on the ballot, the general election ballot in November, but he would have been on with 4 or 5 other candidates and he would have got 3% of the vote, or maybe 5% at the most. He got 26% of the vote, which was pretty significant. And I think, like, I'm in favor of ranked choice voting and open primaries, and, you know, this is whether if you're not a huge proponent of open primaries, this is still a positive thing in my opinion, because what it is doing is showing how rigged the election system is by the two parties. That's what it's doing. And it's pointing it out and holding them accountable. Like, there was a DNC fraud lawsuit that came out after the 2016 election that was very much, the mainstream media never covered it. It was covered up, but this is what we've got to try to do. In the current lawsuit, Open Primaries argues closed primaries constitute an unconstitutional donation to a private entity. New Mexico's closed primary elections are exclusionary and held for the benefit of major political parties, which are purely private entities, the lawsuit states. Even though the primary election is closed and exclusionary, primary elections are paid for by public funds and New Mexico taxpayers, while the major political parties reap the benefits. That's the thing. The two parties try to claim that they say they're for the people when they need to be for the people, and then they say we're a private entity when they need to be a private entity. But they're private entities. Make no mistake, there's no mention of political parties anywhere in the Bill of Rights or the Constitutions, and yet these two parties control our primaries. They control, the two parties dictate who makes it to the television for presidential debates. The two parties set those debate rules. Oh, you got to have 13% of the polls in order to make it if you're a third-party candidate. What? If you're the big Republican or Democratic Party, why are you afraid of the Greens and the Libertarians? What's your problem with that? You should be completely confident in going up against them. Completely confident going up against them. And yet they control the election system. It's bullshit. The parties should not be controlling the election system. They should, not on any level. Not on any level. So I'm glad this lawsuit is happening. New Mexico is one of 9 closed primary states, while another 7 states allow parties to determine whether unaffiliated voters may participate in their nominating contests, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. You see that? They're controlling who gets to vote and who doesn't. They take public money and yet say, oh, but we're a private entity. You have to join our party to vote in our primary. Well, then, no. The DNC fraud lawsuit showed that the Democrats went against their own charter. Nobody seemed to care. Rachel Maddow wasn't crying over that. 28 states currently hold fully open primary elections or primaries in which unaffiliated voters, independents, may participate in any primary they choose, according to the NCSL. Well, I'm going to be following this lawsuit, and I hope they're successful. I hope they're successful, because we need wholesale election reform, and this is a step in the right direction. It's not a cure-all, but it's a step in the right direction, so I'm all for it. Thanks for watching, guys, and please support the show at the patreon.com/Graham Elwood. Share the videos, listen on iTunes. There's a lot of great ways to support the show. Thank you.